I'm sorry, sir. I can't hold the resonance, the alien girl whispered. She did not know that the human data analyst had a plan. The solitary moon of the world Xylos, a cold pearl in the inky void, cast a ghostly light onto the planet's surface, which was covered in amethyst crystals. This world was the embodiment of silence, and for many people accustomed to the noise and bustle, it would have been unbearable. But for Jack Corbin, it was home. Here, among the endless silence and the majestic amethyst spires, he had found refuge from what had been haunting him for 10 years. 10 years ago, during the Titan 7 disaster, Jack was the lead communications analyst. His job was to ensure uninterrupted communication between the research teams and the command center. But during a powerful solar storm, a second before total chaos, his systems fell silent. The connection was lost. Jack could only watch in horror as data poured onto his screen, as those who fought for their lives, but he could do nothing. He lacked both experience and knowledge. After the disaster, he left the Colonial Communications Corps. A sense of guilt haunted him like a shadow. At 38, Jack looked more like a veteran astronaut than a former analyst. His body was wiry and lean, hardened by years spent in isolation. His hair, as dark as his gaze, was cut short, and he always had a 3-day stubble. He was used to solitude and spent his days in an old observation tower that surveyors had once left behind. His equipment consisted of vintage, yet incredibly powerful receivers that picked up even the faintest signals traveling through space. Jack listened to the whispers of the stars and the echo of ancient pulsars, and he felt that this was the only way he could get rid of the noise in his head. His only neighbors were the Sylvans, a local race that lived deep underground in crystal caves. They were beings made of pure energy and light, and their bright green skin shimmered like the northern lights. They rarely came to the surface, and their culture was built on resonance, a special frequency that permeated their entire society. Their cities were carved from crystals, their history was stored in crystal archives, and their communication was based on telepathy, which, in turn, was based on resonance. For the Sylvans, resonance was their spiritual path. That's why he was so surprised when he saw her. She stood at the entrance to his tower. Her bright green skin glowed, but the glow was intermittent and uneven. She was probably around 14 years old, and her body was fragile, like an ice sculpture. Her hair was the color of silver, and it shimmered softly in the light of the moon. But the most striking thing was her gaze, huge sapphire eyes, full of curiosity, in which there was not a hint of fear. She was the only one who dared to approach the human. Jack, without hesitation, stepped forward. "You can come closer if you want," he called, his voice, rough from disuse, echoing in the void. "I'm not dangerous." The girl flinched slightly, then took an uncertain step. Her hands were clenched into fists. "You are human," she whispered, and her voice was melodic, like the ringing of bells. "The one who listens to the void." Jack nodded. "That's me. Jack Corbin, the data analyst who hears what others can't," he said with a mock bow. "And you?" "Alara," she replied, not taking her eyes off his tower. "Alara. Well, Alara, want to take a look at what I do?" He motioned towards his tower. He was surprised himself that he had invited her in, as he had not let anyone into his sanctuary in all these years. She nodded eagerly, following him. Her eyes widened with admiration at the sight of the carefully organized chaos. He showed her the rows of monitors that displayed unimaginable data and the instruments he used to analyze and identify signals. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to a strange device that looked like an ancient crystal. "That's a resonating panel. I built it to understand how the sounds I hear affect the crystals," Jack explained, his voice sounding more and more inspired. "And this?" She pointed to another device, this time on his workstation. "A noise suppressor for corrupted data," he replied, "for those who can't find their clarity." For the next hour, Jack explained the principles of data analysis to her. Alara, in turn, asked surprisingly insightful questions that revealed her natural intelligence. He couldn't remember the last time he had such a genuine conversation. When she approached his desk, her hand involuntarily jerked, knocking a small, but very beautiful, crystal off of it, which rolled across the table. Jack managed to catch it before it shattered on the ground. "What's that?" Alara asked, mesmerized by the glowing crystal in his hand. This is a crystal resonator, used for storing energy." Jack tossed it in his hand. "You Sylvans make jewelry out of them, I know." "It's a resonance crystal," she corrected him, and her shoulders slumped. "I can't use it." And that's when Jack noticed something he hadn't seen before. She couldn't resonate with the crystal. Her skin glowed and then immediately faded. It was as if there was a constant source of interference in her body. Jack looked at her, then at his instruments. Something stirred in his chest, a feeling that he thought had died many years ago. His mind began to work, calculating and designing. "Take it," he said, placing the crystal in her hands. "It's yours." "But I can't." "Not yet." Jack interrupted her, winking. "But one day you will." When Alara left his tower that day, clutching the crystal in her hands, he was already sketching on a dirty tablet. For the first time in 10 years, he had a purpose that went beyond mere survival. What the young Sylvan did not know was that the human data analyst already had a plan. The next morning, Jack woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He had spent half the night sketching out a resonance amplifier that would allow Alara to overcome the interference. Of course, he would need materials and the permission of her family. The latter would be much more difficult than the former. The Sylvans were a very closed-off people, and they were reluctant to make contact with outsiders. In his decade on the planet, Jack had learned to respect their customs, even if he didn't always understand them. Their social structure was complex, clan-based, with sages making decisions for the younger ones. After a quick breakfast of reconstituted protein, Jack gathered his tools and set off on his search. He needed to find out where Alara lived, and that meant he would have to ask the locals, something he rarely did. The underground market was bustling, with Sylvans trading goods. Their melodic language, like the ringing of bells, filled the air, punctuated by the rare sound of a mechanical hum. Jack approached Oric, a crystal merchant who had been one of his first customers many years ago. Orin, Alara's father, his four-fingered hand stroked his wrinkled chin. "They live in the deepest cave, a very traditional clan. The father, Orin Calum, is a sage. And this is him," his eyes narrowed. "Why is the human asking?" "Their daughter visited my tower yesterday," Jack replied. "I might be able to help her." Oric's face darkened. "Be careful, human. The columns follow ancient traditions. They believe that a lack of resonance is a sign of the solstices. These are signs that point to spiritual nonconformity. The girl's condition has brought shame to their house." "That's ridiculous," Jack blurted out before he could stop himself. "It's their way," Oric simply replied. "Not all cultures perceive flaws the way you humans do." Jack thanked him and headed for the deepest cave. He couldn't understand how such a technologically advanced culture as the Sylvans could hold such medieval beliefs. The Calum home was modest but well kept. It was built into a natural intertwining of crystals. Jack approached the entrance and pressed the panel. The door opened, and a tall, stern Sylvan appeared in the doorway. His green skin was darker and more weathered than Alara's. His silver hair was pulled back in the traditional hairstyle of clan elders. "What does the human need in my home?" His voice was cold. "My name is Jack Corbin. I met your daughter yesterday. I can help her." "You have no business with my daughter," the Sylvan interrupted him. "She should not have been near you. Do not come near her again." "Sir, I believe I can help her. I'm a data analyst, and I could create an amplifier for her." "By no means." Orin Calum's voice rose, and his face became darker. "You want to interfere with the will of the solstice? Her condition is her burden to bear." Before Jack could respond, a soft voice from inside said, "Father, who is it?" Alara appeared from behind her father. Her eyes widened when she saw Jack. She clutched the crystal he had given her, quickly hiding it behind her back. "Go inside, daughter," Orin commanded. "But father—" Alara looked at Jack hesitantly before disappearing into the house. "Listen," Jack tried again, keeping his voice level. "Where I'm from, we believe in helping people overcome physical challenges. This isn't interfering with a divine plan. It's using the gifts of intelligence and technology to improve life. That's why your kind is viewed with such suspicion throughout the galaxy." Orin replied. You humans always think you know better than ancient traditions. You meddle and change everything without understanding the consequences. The consequence here will be that your daughter can use her hands again, Jack said, feeling his frustration build. The consequence will be the disruption of her spiritual path and the natural order. Orin straightened up. We do not need human interference. Good day, Mr. Corbin. The door closed, leaving Jack standing alone. He stood there for a moment, weighing his options. Pushing further now would only anger Orin more, but he wasn't going to give up. As he turned to leave, he noticed a small movement in one of the side windows. Alara was watching him, her expression a mix of hope and resignation. She gave him a small wave. The crystal he had given her was visible on a shelf behind her. Jack nodded at her and walked away, his mind already formulating a new approach. The cultural gap was wider than he had expected, but not insurmountable. If he couldn't convince the father with a direct confrontation, maybe there were other ways. He felt more determined than ever. Somewhere in the clash between human ingenuity and Sylvan tradition, there had to be a middle ground. He just had to find it. 3 days passed with no sign of Alara. Jack threw himself into his work, but his thoughts kept returning to the young Sylvan and her father's stern refusal. He still began gathering the components for the amplifier. A high-quality titanium alloy salvage from a crashed cargo vessel, neural interfaces from an old medical scanner, and synthetic muscle fibers that would react to bioelectric signals. Night fell on Xylos, bringing a welcome relief from the scorching light of the suns. When a soft knock on his tower door broke Jack's reverie. He wiped his hands on a rag and cautiously approached the entrance. "Who's there?" he asked. "It's me," a whisper replied. "Alara." Jack quickly opened the door. The girl slipped inside. She was dressed in a dark cloak that concealed her glowing skin. Her eyes nervously scanned the street before Jack closed the door. "Does your father know you're here?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Alara shook her head. "He would be furious. But I had to come to warn you." "Warn me?" Jack frowned, seating her in a chair. "What's wrong, little one?" "After you left, my father called a clan council." Her voice trembled slightly. "The elders discussed you and other humans. They are afraid." "Afraid of what?" "I've been here for 10 years, and I've never caused any problems." Alara's large sapphire eyes met his. "There are rumors that you humans create monsters that destroy resonance, that you study weaknesses to exploit them." She looked at her hands. "My father thinks you want to study me. That's why you offered to help. That's a complete." Jack growled, then softened his tone when he saw Alara flinch. "I'm sorry, but that's not true. None of it." "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I came. I don't believe these stories." Jack ran a hand through his hair, his mind working furiously. "Where are these rumors coming from?" "From Traxian merchants. They visit our settlement twice a year. They bring news from other planets." Traxians, Jack's jaw tightened. Nomadic merchants known for their cunning and manipulation. They have been spreading anti-human propaganda throughout the sector for many years, undermining Earth's diplomatic efforts. "And your father believes this nonsense?" Alara nodded solemnly. "Many believe it. The Traxians showed holograms, terrible things they claimed humans had done." "Fakes," Jack said firmly. "Propaganda. The Traxians have been trying to isolate humanity ever since we expanded beyond our solar system. They don't like the competition." He walked over to his desk and picked up the partial frame he had been constructing. "The beginning of the amplifier for Alara. This is what I wanted to do for you. Not to study you or harm you. To help you use your own resonance." He handed her the frame. "Humans build things, Alara. We fix things. That's our nature." She examined the intricate metalwork with wonder. "It's beautiful, and it will be functional, responsive to your nervous system. You'll be able to feel with it, move naturally." He paused. "Maybe one day you'll be able to resonate with a crystal." Alara's eyes glistened. "My father will never allow it, because of these rumors, but also because of our traditions. The will of the solstice cannot be challenged." She added hesitantly, "There's something else. My dissonance. It wasn't an accident." Jack's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "In our culture, children who show too much curiosity about outsiders." She searched for the word. are punished. I was caught talking to a human last year. The clan elders assigned my punishment. They took away your ability? Jack felt a cold rage bubbling up inside him. Not the elders. Traxian enforcers. They handle complex issues for many settlements. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They said it would remind me of my place. God, Jack muttered, trying to contain his anger. This goes beyond cultural differences. This is cruelty disguised as tradition. The Traxians are returning in 3 days, Ilara continued. There will be a meeting. My father plans to speak out against you, to demand that you leave Xylos. Jack's mind was already formulating a plan. The Traxians were the real problem. They were manipulating the Sylvans, using fear to maintain control. If he could expose their lies. Ilara, I need you to tell me everything you know about these Traxians, their ships, their security, their routine. She looked uncertain. Why? Because I'm going to show your people the truth. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm not going to harm anyone, but I can't let these lies continue. Ilara studied his face, looking for something in his expression. Whatever she saw there, it satisfied her because she nodded. Their ship lands on the western plateau. They bring guards, 6 to 8. They have weapons, not like any I've seen. And the holograms, the propaganda, are stored in a projection device. Their leader, named Korvax, always keeps it with him. Jack nodded, memorizing the details. You need to go home before you're missed. But, Ilara, he held her gaze. I promise you, I will help you use your hands again, and I will show your people who the real monsters are. When she left in the night, Jack returned to his desk with a new determination. He had 3 days to complete the amplifier and devise a plan to expose the Traxians. It was risky, but he had faced worse odds in the Colonial Communications Corps. For the first time in years, Jack felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with a mission. The reputation of humanity and the future of a young girl depended on his success. As dawn broke over Xylos, Jack sat at his encrypted communications terminal, a device he hadn't used in years. Hidden beneath a false panel, this terminal was the very life he had left behind. He had kept it in perfect condition, knowing that someday he might need it. Today was that day. The terminal hummed, connecting to Earth's secure military network through a series of signals designed to mask his location. After a series of authentication protocols, a face appeared on the screen. It was rough, more wrinkled than Jack remembered, but it was undoubtedly Admiral Thorn. Well, I'll be, Thorn said, her surprise quickly giving way to military stoicism. Analyst Jack Corbin. Intelligence declared you deceased 7 years ago. Sorry to disappoint them. Jack replied with a half-smile. 10 years, Corbin. 10 years of silence. Thorn's eyes narrowed. The Titan 7 disaster. It wasn't your fault. You didn't have to disappear. I needed distance, Jack said simply. But that's not why I'm calling. He quickly briefed Thorn on the situation, the Traxian propaganda, their manipulations, and their systematic campaign to turn alien species against humanity. This confirms the intelligence we've been gathering, Thorn nodded. The Traxians are causing problems in 17 systems. Their trade monopoly depends on keeping species isolated, especially humans. We're too good at trade. I need help, Thorn. Nothing big, just enough to provide protection for the locals if things go sideways. Thorn rubbed her chin. You're in luck. We have a stealth corvette running reconnaissance in your sector. Commander Vale. Remember her? Jack's eyebrows went up. Vale? The camouflage specialist from Titan? The one. She's now a commander, leading our counterintelligence operations against the Traxians. I'll reroute her to your coordinates. But, Corbin, this is off the books. Officially, you're still a ghost. Understood. Just need enough firepower to make the Traxians think twice. Vale should arrive in about 48 hours. That should give you time to get ready. Thorn paused. Good to see you're still in the fight, Corbin. I'm not an analyst anymore, Thorn. If you were in the Colonial Corps, you're always a part of it, son. The commander's face softened for a moment. End of transmission. The screen went black. Jack let out a slow breath. He didn't expect the wave of emotions that came over him with reconnecting to his past. For 10 years, he had been just an analyst. No responsibilities other than keeping his small world alive. Now he was a soldier again, with all the consequences that came with it. He closed the hidden compartment and returned to his workbench, where the amplifier for Alara was taking shape. The intricate neural interface was designed to connect directly to her nervous system, translating her brain's signals into fluid movements. It was his best work, elegant, responsive, and powerful. Throughout the morning, his mind kept returning to the young Sylvan. Her courage in daring to go against her culture to warn him had stirred something in Jack that he thought had died on Titan 7. A willingness to trust, to care. By noon, he heard a familiar knock on the door. Alara slipped inside. "You came back," Jack said, putting down his tools. "I brought food," she replied, placing a small package on the table. "You forget to eat when you work." Jack smiled, surprised that she had noticed such a detail. "Thank you, little one. Is it ready?" Her eyes darted to the amplifier. "Almost. Come here." Alara approached cautiously, her gaze fixed on the gleaming gauntlet. Jack helped her onto a chair and carefully measured her hands. "I need to make the final adjustments," he explained. "The neural interface has to be precisely calibrated to your nervous system." "Will it hurt?" she asked, her voice quiet. "There will be some discomfort during the initial connection," Jack admitted. "But after that, it should feel natural, like it's always been a part of you." Alara nodded, her jaw set with determination. "I am ready." Jack leaned closer. "I know you are," he said, his voice softening. "You're one of the bravest people I've met, and I've served with some pretty courageous soldiers." Her head tilted curiously. "You were a warrior?" "Colonial Communications Corps, data analyst, special operations." He rarely talked about his military past, but something about Alara's direct gaze made evasion pointless. "I specialized in biological systems and intelligence gathering." "Is that why you're so good at making things?" Jack nodded. "Partly. The rest is just practice and stubbornness." As he worked on the final adjustments, Alara watched intently, asking questions about each component. Her mind and curiosity reminded Jack why he had decided to help her in the first place. "I contacted some colleagues," he said carefully. "They'll be here tomorrow to help us deal with the Traxians." Alara's eyes widened. "More humans are coming here?" "Just a small team, specialists." He connected the neural conduit to the amplifier's interface. "We're going to expose the Traxians' propaganda and show your people the truth." "And how will we do that?" she asked. Jack smiled. With this, he held up the completed amplifier, its surface gleaming in the light. "We'll test it tomorrow night. If all goes well, you'll walk into that meeting with 2 fully functioning hands. Living proof that humans create, not destroy." Alara stared at the amplifier. "My father will be furious." "Probably," Jack conceded. "But sometimes you have to break tradition to move forward. Humans learned that lesson centuries ago." He carefully placed the amplifier on its charging station. "Come back tomorrow at sunset. We'll do the procedure then. Commander Vale should be here by then with medical supplies to make everything go smoothly." Alara stood up. "What if it doesn't work?" "It will work," Jack said with a confidence that once led soldiers into battle. "I promise." After she left, Jack returned to his communications terminal and sent the encrypted coordinates to Vale's Corvette. Then he began preparing his workshop for the procedure, clearing a space and sterilizing surfaces. As he worked, a plan was forming in his head. The Traxians were using fear and tradition to turn the Sylvans against humanity. Tomorrow, he would show them the power of human ingenuity and compassion, one step at a time. The next day brought an unexpected complication. Jack was fine-tuning the neural sensor when his security system chirped, a silent alert indicating unusual electromagnetic activity nearby. He activated a scanner hidden in the outer wall of his tower and frowned at the results. "Surveillance tech," he muttered. "Military grade." The scanner detected 3 devices within a 50-meter radius of his tower. One on a power cable across the street, another under a market stall in the corner, and a third on his own rooftop. The technology was unmistakably Traxian. Compact, sophisticated, and nearly invisible to standard scanners. Jack carefully maintained his normal routine, moving about the tower as if unaware of the surveillance. Inside, his mind was racing. The Traxians weren't supposed to arrive for another day, according to Alara. Their early surveillance suggested they knew something was up. When he was sure he was in a blind spot between the cameras, Jack activated his emergency beacon, a coded pulse that would alert Commander Vale to the changed situation without revealing their connection. By noon, a response came through his hidden terminal. Accelerating arrival, ETA, 6 hours. Maintain caution. Vale, 6 hours. That meant Vale would arrive just after sunset. At the same time, Alara was supposed to return for the procedure. Jack will have to work quickly. He spent the entire day making the final adjustments to the amplifier. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over Xylos, Jack felt a presence outside his tower. "We have a problem," he said quietly, pulling her away from the windows. "The Traxians arrived early. They've set up surveillance around my tower." Alara's eyes widened. "But how? The meeting is not until tomorrow. They must have informants in the settlement." Jack walked over to the amplifier, which gleamed on his desk. "We need to hurry. My colleagues will be here soon, but we need to complete the procedure before that." Alara looked at the amplifier, a mix of fear and determination in her eyes. "I am ready." Jack nodded and helped her lie down on the prepared medical table. He injected a local anesthetic into the nerve endings, connecting the conductors to her hands. He did it in a way that Alara wouldn't feel pain, but she could feel the changes happening in her body. "This will help you while we connect the amplifier," he explained. "The neural interface must resonate with your nervous system. First, you'll feel a tingling, and then a warm feeling will spread through your body as your brain begins to perceive the new frequencies." Alara took a deep breath and nodded. Jack started the activation sequence, and the amplifier hummed, its internal components glowing with a soft purple light. Alara gasped, her fingers clutching the edge of the table. For a split second, Jack thought something had gone wrong, but then the expression on her face changed from pain to surprise. "I feel it," she whispered. "Like it was always here." Jack helped her sit up, supporting her by the shoulders. "Take your time. Your brain is creating new neural maps." Alara looked at the amplifier, which was now seamlessly attached to her hands. The design was similar to what her clan members wore, but the metallic sheen and the subtle purple glow betrayed its artificial nature. "Try to clench your fingers," Jack instructed. Alara concentrated, and the amplifier's fingers clenched in response. Her face lit up with joy. "Now unclench." The joints moved smoothly, responding to her mental commands as if they were flesh and blood. "Ready to try to stand?" Alara readily nodded. Jack supported her as she slid off the table. She swayed slightly, then found her balance. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Strong," she replied, surprised by her own voice. "Stronger than before. The alloy is light, but stronger than bone. If necessary, you'll be able to punch through a wall with it." Alara took a hesitant step, then another. Each movement became more confident as her brain adapted to the new limb. Within minutes, she was walking around the workshop, only occasionally touching surfaces. "This is incredible," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "I never thought that." Jack's security system's sharp beep interrupted her. He quickly went to the monitor. "Traxian ship," he said, pointing to the image of a sleek, predatory vessel descending towards the western plateau. "And they're not alone. Those are combat ships." Alara came to him, her new hands allowing her to cross the room in seconds. "They weren't supposed to bring warriors, only merchants and guards. They know something." Jack checked his chronometer. Vale should be here in less than an hour, but the Traxians will reach the settlement sooner. He made a quick decision, going to a hidden compartment and taking out his old EDF combat suit, a matte black one with reinforced joints and multiple equipment attachments. "Change of plans," he said, unceremoniously shedding his work clothes and pulling on the combat gear. "We need to buy some time." Alara watched as he transformed from an analyst into a soldier, her expression a mix of awe and anxiety. "What are you going to do?" Jack checked his blaster, then attached additional weapons to his hip and back. "First, I'll disable their surveillance. Then we'll show your people what the Traxians have really been doing." He paused, looking at her. "How fast do you think you can learn to run?" Alara's eyes narrowed with determination. Try to keep up, human. Jack smiled. Maybe humanity had more in common with the Sylvans than either species realized. Both could adapt, overcome difficulties, and face impossible circumstances with courage. Let's go, he said, activating the EMP devices that would blind the Traxian surveillance. Time to play big. The desert night was filled with tension as Jack and Alara slipped through the shadows. Her new amplifier worked flawlessly, each step confident and silent. "You're a natural," Jack whispered, amazed at how quickly she had adapted to the amplifier. "It feels like it's always been a part of me," Alara replied, making a perfect turn around a corner, as if it was waiting for me. They stopped at the edge of the main square, where a crowd had already gathered. 3 Traxian ships dominated the landing zone, the central trade vessel surrounded by 2 sleeker combat ships. The Traxians themselves stood out among the Sylvans. They were taller, with irrationally scaly skin and elongated limbs that ended in 4-fingered hands. Their leader, presumably Corvax, was addressing the crowd from a raised platform. "We will protect you from human aggression," he said, his voice amplified by a translator. "Their expansion threatens all peaceful species. Their technology corrupts. Their intentions are clear." Behind him, a holographic display showed images of alleged human atrocities, medical experiments, weapons tests, planetary destruction. All of it was fabricated, as Jack knew, but it was convincing to those who had limited contact with humans. "We need to get closer," Jack muttered. "I need to get access to their projection system." "My father is there." Alara pointed to the front row of the crowd, where Orin Calum stood with other clan elders. "He looks worried." Before they could move, Jack's comm unit vibrated on his wrist. He checked the display and smiled. "Vale is here early." As if on cue, a faint flickering light appeared in the night sky. The stealth corvette came out of hiding just enough to be visible to those who knew what to look for. A few moments later, Jack's earpiece hissed. "Corbin, this is Vale. We are in a tactical position above the settlement. A team of 4 is ready for a ground invasion, awaiting your signal." "Received," Jack replied quietly. "The target is the Traxian projection system. We need to replace their propaganda with real evidence." "Already working on it. The team is moving to your position in 3 minutes." Jack turned to Alara. "Change of plans. We have reinforcements, but we still need a distraction." A commotion at the edge of the crowd caught their attention. Orin Calum stepped forward, challenging Corvax. "These accusations against the human are serious." Orin's voice rang out across the square. "However, for 10 cycles, Jack has not harmed our people. He trades honestly, respects our ways." Corvax's expression darkened. "The human deceives you. Even now, he is plotting against your traditions. Ask yourselves why he is hiding tonight, instead of facing these accusations head-on." "I'm not hiding," Jack shouted, stepping into the open. All eyes turned to him. A shock passed through the crowd when they saw his combat gear and weapons. Corvax's hand reached for his weapon. The human reveals his true nature, armed and dangerous. "I am armed because you brought combat ships to a trade post," Jack replied calmly, approaching them. "That seems excessive for a peaceful visit." The Traxian guards standing next to Corvax raised their weapons, but Jack continued his confident movement. He needed their attention to be focused on him while Vale's team took up position. "The human lies," Corvax hissed. "We are protecting you from his kind. See the evidence." He pointed to the horrifying images that were still showing behind him. "Fakes," Jack said. "Just like the rumors you've been spreading about humans creating monsters." "Tell me, Corvax, why would a species that can do this?" He stopped and turned to the shadows. "Need to create monsters?" As if on cue, Alara stepped into the light. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as she moved fluidly and confidently into the square. "Alara." Orin Calum's voice trembled with disbelief. "How is this possible? The human has restored my ability." "Father," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Not a crude replacement, but a true resonance that feels and moves like my own." Orin approached slowly, looking at the amplifier in amazement. "This is human technology." "Human compassion," Jack corrected. "Something the Traxians tried to erase from your understanding. Korvac snarled. This is a trick. The human has corrupted the girl's mind along with her body. No corruption, Alara replied, standing straight. Only healing. What your enforcers took from me as punishment for my curiosity. A murmur went through the crowd as this revelation sank in. Orin's expression became hard as he turned to Korvax. Your enforcers did this to my daughter? The girl broke tradition, Korvax said dismissively. The punishment was approved by your own elders. Under false pretenses, Jack interjected. The Traxians have manipulated dozens of species, isolating them from human contact to maintain their trade monopoly. They aren't protecting you, they're controlling you. Korvax raised his weapon. Enough. The human dies tonight. Before he could fire, four figures in black descended from the sky, landing in strategic positions around the square. Commander Vale. Her face was hidden by a tactical helmet. She moved with deadly precision to disarm the nearest Traxian guard. Earth Defense Forces, she announced, her voice amplified. Weapons down. The square descended into chaos. The Traxian guards opened fire, while the Sylvans scattered for cover. Jack pushed Alara towards her father, then drew his weapon. Get her to safety, he yelled to Orin. To his surprise, Orin did not retreat. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between his daughter and the Traxians. No more, he declared. No longer will we be manipulated by outsiders who claim to protect while they control. The other Sylvans rallied around him, forming a protective circle around Alara. Vale's team moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing the Traxian resistance with precise stun shots. Korvax, seeing his advantage disappearing, desperately rushed for his ship. Jack intercepted him, tackling the Traxian leader to the ground. The evidence, Jack roared, pinning him down. Where is the real data? Korvax struggled, his scaly skin slippery in Jack's grip. You've ruined everything. Decades of painstaking work. Captain, Vale called, throwing something to him. Jack caught it with one hand. It was a data extraction device. He pressed it against Korvax's personal terminal, bypassing the security protocols with EDF codes. Download complete, Vale confirmed a few seconds later. Projecting now. The holographic display above the square flickered, then changed. Instead of fabricated atrocities, it showed the truth. Traxian communications detailing their systematic campaign to isolate developing species, their manipulation of cultural traditions to maintain control, and their specific targeting of human-alien relations. The Sylvans watched in stunned silence as their decade-long relationship with the Traxians was revealed as a complex deception. Orin Kalem stepped forward, his expression grim but determined. We have been blind, he announced to his people. The ancestors teach us to value truth above all else. Today we have seen it. He turned to Jack, who was still holding Korvax immobilized. The human has shown us more respect in this act of honesty than the Traxians have in generations of trade. Alara came to stand beside her father, her amplifier gleaming in the light of the projections. He gave me back what they took, father. Not just my ability, but my future. Orin studied his daughter for a long time, then did something that was unprecedented. He bowed his head to Jack. The Kalem clan acknowledges our debt to you, Jack Corbin. You have honored us with truth and healing. As Vale's team apprehended the remaining Traxians, Jack realized that the events of this night had changed everything. Not just for Alara, but for the relationship between humans and Sylvans. Sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't a blaster or a combat ship, but a simple act of compassion. And sometimes the most important step was the very first one. 10 years later, the diplomatic ship, Harmony, smoothly entered orbit around Xylos. Its sleek lines were a testament to human engineering. Commander Jack Corbin stood at the viewport, his dark eyes scanning the familiar desert landscape below. At 52, his short hair was graying, but his military bearing and powerful physique remained unchanged. Nervous, Admiral Thorne, now with a full white beard, asked. Curious, Jack replied. 10 years is a long time. After the incident with the Traxians, Jack had reluctantly accepted a position in Earth's diplomatic corps. His unique understanding of Sylvan culture had made him invaluable as humanity established official relations with the world. What was supposed to be a temporary assignment had turned into a decade-long career spanning 17 systems. "The Sylvan delegation is ready to receive us," the communications officer announced. Jack nodded, adjusting his dress uniform. This visit marked the culmination of years of work, the signing of a mutual defense treaty that would officially bring Xylos into Earth's Protection Alliance. The shuttle ride to the surface was short, but it gave Jack time to admire the transformation below. The underground settlement had blossomed into a thriving city, where Sylvan architecture blended seamlessly with human technology. Solar arrays captured the harsh desert sunlight, powering systems that had turned parts of the landscape into green oases. They landed at the newly constructed Diplomatic Center, a stunning structure of local stone and transparent alloy that seemed to grow organically out of the desert floor. A delegation of Sylvan officials waited at the landing pad, led by a figure Jack immediately recognized despite the years. Oren Kalem had aged gracefully. His once dark green skin was now paler, and his silver hair was longer in the style of a revered elder. He took a step forward and, to Jack's surprise, extended his hand in the human greeting they had established years ago. "Commander Corbin," Oren said warmly, "the Kalem clan welcomes your return." "Elder Kalem," Jack replied, shaking the four-fingered hand. "It's good to see the settlement thriving." "Much has changed," Oren acknowledged, "largely because of your intervention a decade ago. The council awaits your delegation in the Great Hall." As they walked through the diplomatic center, Jack noticed the integration of human and Sylvan design elements. Practical human technology was softened by the fluid style of Sylvan art. Children of both species played together in a courtyard, their laughter a universal language. The Great Hall was impressive, a vast space with a transparent dome that offered a view of the two suns above. Members of the Sylvan Council were seated in a semicircle, their formal attire gleaming with traditional metalwork. In the center, in the position of council leader, sat a figure that made Jack's heart skip a beat. Alara Kalem had grown from a shy, traumatized girl into a commanding figure. Her silvery hair was elegantly styled, framing a face that had matured into striking beauty. Her green skin seemed to glow with health and confidence. She wore the official robes of her office, but they could not conceal her athletic physique, the legacy of years spent in full use of the mobility he had given her. Their eyes met across the hall, and for a moment, Jack was transported back to that first meeting. The curious girl looking on from afar. Her piercing sapphire eyes still held the same intelligence, but they were now softened by wisdom and authority. The formal proceedings passed in a blur of speeches and ceremonial gestures. Jack performed his diplomatic duties flawlessly, but his attention remained fixed on Alara, the way she commanded the room, the respect that was evident in how others deferred to her judgment, the subtle glances she would occasionally cast his way. When the treaty was signed and the official reception began, Jack finally had his opportunity. Alara approached him, moving with a grace that gave no hint of her amplifier. "Commander Corbin," she said, her melodic voice deeper than he remembered. "Or should I call you Ambassador now?" "Jack is fine," he replied, smiling. "Or is it Council Leader Kalem Alara?" she corrected, returning his smile. Something should not change with titles. They moved to a quieter corner of the reception, away from the mingling diplomats. "Your father mentioned you were leading the council, but he didn't say you would transform the entire settlement," Jack said, gesturing toward the city beyond the windows. "I had a good foundation to build on," she replied. "A lesson about innovation, respect for tradition." Her eyes were fixed on his. "About healing old wounds. The amplifier? Is it still working well?" he asked. In response, she lifted the hem of her official robe just enough to reveal the gleaming amplifier, now adorned with intricate Sylvan patterns etched into its surface. "I made some aesthetic changes, but the core technology remains perfect." "And the resonance?" he asked, remembering the crystal he had given her all those years ago. Alara laughed, the sound sending an unexpected warmth through him. "Come with me. You have to see something." She led him through a series of corridors to an open field behind the diplomatic center. There dozens of Sylvan children were engaged in a familiar game. They were launching crystals that resonated with music. "You started this?" Jack asked, watching a young Sylvan girl launch a perfect crystal. "The first cultural exchange program between humans and Sylvans," Elara confirmed. "I thought it was appropriate." As they watched the children play, Elara's hand found his. A bold gesture by Sylvan standards. "I kept that crystal," she said softly. "Even after you left, it reminded me that limitations could be overcome." The diplomatic reception continued without them as they walked the grounds. 10 years of separate lives compressed into hours of conversation. Elara described her rise to leadership, her efforts to balance Sylvan traditions with progress. Jack shared stories of his diplomatic missions, the worlds he had seen, and the alliances he had helped forge. When the two moons rose above the desert, they found themselves in a private garden, the night air cool. "I never properly thank you," Elara said, standing close enough for Jack to feel the warmth radiating from her. "For giving me back more than just an ability. You gave me a future." "You built that future yourself," Jack replied. "I just provided the tool." "Perhaps," she conceded, "but some tools change everything." Their first kiss was a hesitant one, a bridge between species, cultures, worlds. Their second was not. Later, in the privacy of Elara's quarters, they discovered that despite their physiological differences, some forms of connection transcended biology. Their coming together was both alien and familiar, strange and perfect, a dance of discovery and desire that left them both breathless with wonder. In the silence afterward, as they lay intertwined, Elara traced the old scars on Jack's chest, the marks of his military days. "Stay," she whispered, "not just for the treaty, but for this." "The Corps expects me back," he began, but found he couldn't imagine leaving again. "Xylos needs a permanent human ambassador," she countered. "One who understands our ways, who has already proven his commitment to our people." 3 months later, their union was officially sanctioned in a ceremony that blended human and Sylvan traditions. 6 months later, they faced their greatest challenge and joy. The discovery that, despite all scientific predictions, Elara was pregnant with their child. The first human-Sylvan hybrid in recorded history. Medical experts were baffled, but Jack wasn't. If humanity had proven anything, it was that the impossible just required perseverance, ingenuity, and a heart. On the day Elara felt the first kick of their child, she found Jack in his workshop, a larger, more complex version of the old tower where they first met. He was tinkering with a tiny amplifier, perfectly sized for an infant. "What's that for?" she asked, though she already knew. Jack looked up, his eyes crinkling with a smile that still made her heart race. "Just in case," he said. "I like to be prepared." Elara laughed and tossed him a small crystal. The same one he gave her all those years ago, now worn with age and use. "Our child will have to learn to resonate," she said, placing his hand on her rounded stomach. "From both of us." As their child moved beneath his palm, Jack thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a girl outcast who couldn't resonate, to a leader who transformed her world. From a lonely analyst hiding from his past, to a man who helped shape the future. Sometimes the most important fixes weren't in data, but in hearts. And sometimes the most meaningful plans were the ones you never knew you had.